Hey everyone, and welcome back. In this video we're going to start tackling the interaction between our enemies and our projectiles, and the enemies and our player, and kind of restarting the game when the player dies. So whenever you have these interactions, you want to plan out kind of where the call is going to be to do what you want to do. And so let me regale you with my Photoshop skills here. Here's my amazing bullet. And here is my awesome enemy. Like that wanderer. Doesn't he have a circle? I don't know. Anyway, so you kind of make a case for either script holding the code to destroy one or the other. And so in the past, I've put the on trigger enter on my bullet script, and that's the method we're going to call. And for the record, it's the on trigger enter 2D. And so at some point we have to destroy either one of these. Our enemy script does have that take damage method, which then kind of calls more stuff to destroy itself when it doesn't have any more HP. And so for this particular game, because we set that up already, I think it's easier to have the on trigger enter on the enemy script, and then we'll check, hey, did you run into a bullet? Did you run into a player? What did you hit, and what are we going to do about it? Whereas in other games, the bullet had a little more power, and the fact that it was the only thing really hitting anything in the previous games that we've made. So just because there's different kinds of enemies that need to interact more with the environment, I think it's a easier thing to put this code on the enemy script. And so that's what we're going to do. So in the enemy script, I can come down to the bottom and I will put in that on trigger enter 2D. Just for a little bit of housekeeping, I like to change the name of the other collider to other instead of just collision. That way it's a little easier to read for people. And then let's start out. So if the other dot compare tag, we're going to use tags for this. If it's the player bullet, then we can just from here call our own take damage method. If we had this on the bullet, we would have had to say, hey, other enemy, go get your enemy script, and then call the script over there. It would have been a longer line of code to write. And so we'll call that take damage there. Then, because the bullets only hit one object, we can say destroy the other dot game object. And so let's go ahead and set up that functionality really quick. I'm looking for a tag called player bullet, and we don't have that just yet. So on my bullet prefab here, it's called player bullet, the name of it, but it is untagged, and there is no player bullet tag. So let's go add to that list, and I'm just like I did in the script, I need to type this in the exact same. So if you have capitals or not, and make sure your spelling is good. And then I need to actually tag my bullet with that tag. And so now all of my enemies should be able to get shot. All right, so that I took care of them really quick. They are gone. My bullets are still there, but we'll deal with them in a minute. Okay, so what happens if the enemies hit the player? They are both triggers, so we can use one method to handle the enemies getting shot as well as running into the player. And so let's head back over to our script, and we'll say else if other dot compare tag is the player, then we're going to destroy that other dot game object, and we might as well destroy ourselves as well. Eventually we do want to wipe out the entire board when the player dies, but let's just handle one thing at a time. So just double checking that my player is tagged as player, and if I hit play, I'm just gonna sit here, let him come for me, and bang. So Wanderer is still going around. I have this error on the console that I'm missing a reference exception. The object of type Unity transform has been destroyed, but I'm still trying to access it. That's on the main camera. And that camera controller was following my player, and the player no longer exists, so it's having a little fit here. So we want to respawn our player. So we're going to use our game manager to do that, because this persists through the scene. It doesn't go away. It doesn't get destroyed, and we can load in a new player. But we need to have a prefab to do that. So if you haven't, take your player and turn that into a prefab. And then over in the game manager script, just like we have a game object for our play area, let's set up a public game object for our player. And then let's create a method here. It needs to be public. Public void called spawn player. And all we'll do in here is say we're going to instantiate our player at the center. So we're actually just a shortcut there. We'll say vector3.0 back at the middle, and we won't have any rotations, so we can just say quaternion.identity. We'll save that. Then on our enemy script, when we hit a player, after we destroy him, we want to spawn it back in. And so our game manager is already an instance, so we can just say game manager.instance.spawn player. That is just going to give us a player back. The camera controller script is still, it only set its target in awake. And so we need to say that if we lose that target, we need to go find it again. And so the first thing we want to do in our late update, before we do any of this other stuff, if it comes after, it might throw some errors. But we want to say, hey, if our target is equal to null, if it doesn't have a target, we need to go find one. And so what I actually want to do is, again, make a new method for this. I don't want to have the same code twice. I'm going to take this code, the target finding, the player finding code. I'm going to cut that from there. I'm going to make a new method called find player. And I will paste that in there. Now I need to call find player in place of where I cut that out of in awake. And then I'll also find player basically if he gets destroyed. So the camera is always checking to make sure it has a target. If it does have a target, then it'll go and follow along with the player. So now I did not set my player in game manager. So let me make sure that I can respawn an actual player. I'm going to show you another little problem here. So even before they start, I can run into the bad guys. So see the seeker, quote unquote, never spawned. Oh, he did, but I ran into him before he was ready to go. So if I hit that wanderer, I got respawned. The camera snaps back and is following me. All right, so let's fix that other problem with our enemies, that even though they're spawning in, their colliders are there and active. So over in that enemy script, similar to how we set up that they can't move until they're active, we need to get a reference to their collider and keep it off until we're ready for them to start moving. So similar to the player movement, we need a collider. And I'll just copy and paste because while I'm showing you here, I might as well grab the script that's there. And all these other component references, I'll drop that in there. I'll set call equal to the collider 2D that's attached. And then, So when we're setting active, if the time until start is less than 0, we set is active to true. Let's also set our collider call.enabled equals true as well. So that does mean that on my enemies, I need to turn those collider components off. And so I'm going to do that on the prefabs down here. So the seeker enemy, the wanderer enemy, they don't have the same collider, so I can't do that together. So on the seeker, turn off the capsule. On the wanderer, turn off the circle. And now I should kind of be able to sit on them until they spawn in. Alright, so that's pretty much it. As we create new enemies, they will have all that behavior that we are adding in there. They can be shot, they can run into the player, they can do all kinds of stuff. The player can shoot, we can shoot our enemies and get rid of them. So next we need to work on creating waves of enemies. So that's what we're going to do in the next video, and I will see you then.